smell of Brooke's coffee filled the kitchen, sunlight pouring through the window. My son Daniel sat at the table, scrolling through headlines, and my 7-year-old grandson, Noah, was quietly building a Lego tower on the floor. I smiled, kissed Daniel's forehead, and bent down to brush Noah's hair. "Grandma's off to work," I said. But when I turned to leave, Noah suddenly grabbed my coat. His face was pale, his hands shaking. "Grandma, don't get in the car," he whispered, eyes darting toward the dining room where his mother was. "It's dangerous," Mom said. "Your car's going to explode." I froze, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. He couldn't be joking, his voice was trembling with fear. I knelt beside him, trying to keep calm. "Sweetheart, who told you that?" Noah leaned close, barely whispering. "I heard Mr. Victor on the phone. He said Mom ordered it." For a moment, the world around me disappeared, only his small voice remained. My daughter-in-law, the woman I had welcomed like my own child, wanted me gone. Just then, Brooke appeared, holding my laptop bag. "Mom, you forgot this," she said sweetly. I forced a smile. "Thank you, honey. I think I'll take a taxi today." Her smile faltered for half a second, and that half second told me everything. As soon as I stepped outside, the air felt heavier than usual. Victor, the guard Brooke had hired 2 years ago, opened the gate but avoided my eyes. That small gesture made my stomach twist. I called for a taxi instead of heading to the garage. While waiting, Noah held my hand tightly, his small fingers trembling. I hugged him close, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. Grandma's right here." When the car arrived, I helped him into the back seat. "Take us to St. Mary's School, then 34th and Main," I told the driver. But I had no intention of going to the office that morning. Noah sat silently beside me, eyes wide with worry. I took a deep breath. "Tell me exactly what you heard, honey." He swallowed hard. "Mr. Victor was talking to someone on the phone. He said, she just needs to get in the car, then it'll explode. And he said Mom gave the order." I felt my throat close. How could Brooke, the woman I trusted, who ran the company beside me, want me dead? When we reached his school, I kissed Noah's forehead. "Not a word to anyone, okay? Grandma will fix this." He nodded bravely, trying to smile. As the taxi pulled away, I whispered to myself, "If this is true, I'll find out even if it destroys everything." The taxi circled back toward the house. From the window, I watched Brooke and Daniel's car disappear down the road toward the office. Only then did I dare to move. I didn't go through the main gate where Victor stood. Instead, I slipped in through the narrow garden path behind the hibiscus fence, a shortcut only I knew. The air smelled of wet grass and jasmine, but my heart was pounding too loudly to notice. At the corner of the yard stood the old wooden side door. I lifted the decorative stone beneath the bushes where I'd hidden a spare key years ago. The lock creaked softly, a sound that made my whole body tense. I crossed the garden, moving between the trees, until I saw the black Cadillac parked in the garage. It looked harmless, familiar, yet I couldn't shake Noah's trembling words. Just then, Joseph, our longtime gardener, appeared from the shed. He looked shocked. "Mrs. Warren, I thought you'd gone to work." I motioned for silence. "Joseph, please, check under my car but don't touch anything." He hesitated, then crouched down. Minutes later he stood, pale and shaking. "Ma'am, there's a small black box under the chassis, red and blue wires. It's not part of the car." My knees nearly gave out. Noah had been right. Someone had truly tried to kill me. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breath. The world felt unreal, like I was trapped inside someone else's nightmare. Joseph's voice trembled. "What should we do, ma'am?" I forced myself to think. "Take a few pictures, then leave everything as it is." "And Joseph, tell no one, not even Victor." He nodded and hurried off. I opened my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I hadn't seen in years: Calvin Rios. A retired detective, and my late husband's old friend. He was the only person I trusted enough to call. "Lydia," he said when he answered, his deep voice still steady, "it's been a long time." "There's no time for small talk," I said quickly. "Someone planted a bomb in my car." Silence. Then his tone changed, calm but firm. "Where are you?" An hour later we met at a small diner off Highway 40. Calvin arrived with his old leather briefcase, still carrying that quiet authority of a man who'd seen too much. I slid my phone across the table, showing him the photos Joseph had taken. He studied them for a moment, then looked up. "This isn't random, Lydia. It's professional. Someone close to you wants you gone, and they nearly succeeded." 2 days later, Calvin called. His voice was low, tense. "Lydia, I've found something. Meet me at the diner and come alone." When I arrived, he was already there, a laptop open on the table. He turned the screen toward me. The grainy footage showed Victor in a dark alley near the night market, glancing around before handing a thick brown envelope to a man in a baseball cap. Calvin paused the video. "His name's Leo Chen, small-time gambler in deep debt. Word is he was hired for something dangerous. Your guard paid him in cash." My stomach twisted. Victor, the man Brooke had insisted we hire, was part of it. I stared at the frozen image on the screen, the 2 men in that shadowed alley. Calvin leaned closer. "He's not the mastermind. Someone's giving orders. And Lydia, I think you already know who that someone is." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in my heart, I already did know. The warmth I'd once felt for Brooke had turned to ice. "Keep pretending nothing's wrong," Calvin said quietly. "I'll keep watching Victor. They'll slip up soon." As I left the diner, the city lights blurred before my eyes. The betrayal I feared was no longer a suspicion, it was real, and it had a name. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was silent except for the ticking clock in the hallway. Every shadow felt alive, every sound suspicious. Around midnight, I stepped into the garden for air. The moon hung low, silver light washing over the magnolia trees. That's when I heard it, 2 voices near the back fence. I hid behind the oak tree and held my breath. It was Brooke and Victor. Her voice was sharp, filled with irritation. "Are you sure she hasn't noticed anything?" she demanded. Victor replied nervously, "No, ma'am, I've kept everything quiet. The man already placed the device. She just needs to get in the car." Brooke exhaled. "No, it's too risky. Tell him to remove it tomorrow. We'll find another way, something that looks like an accident." My hands trembled as I lifted my phone, recording every word. When the conversation ended, I backed away slowly, my knees weak. Back inside, I saved the file and emailed a copy to myself. The proof was undeniable now. The woman I had loved like a daughter was planning my death, and tomorrow, I would bring her to justice. At dawn, I drove straight to the Denver Police Department. Calvin was already there, speaking with Captain Mara Sloan, a composed woman whose calm eyes could cut through fear. I told her everything: Noah's warning, the photos, and finally the recording from the garden. She listened without interrupting, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. When the last word of the recording faded, she looked at me and said, "Mrs. Warren, you've done everything right. You stayed quiet, gathered evidence, and stayed alive. Now let's finish it." Sloan spread out a map of my property across the desk. "We'll place cameras around the garage and the garage gate. We'll wait for Leo Chen to return to remove the bomb, just like your daughter-in-law ordered. Once he shows up, we move." Her voice was steady, but mine trembled when I asked, "And Brooke?" Sloan gave a thin, grim smile. "She'll think she's in control until the moment she isn't." That night, the house looked peaceful from the outside, lights warm, windows glowing. But behind that calm, a dozen officers hid in the shadows, watching every movement. The storm was finally closing in, and this time I wasn't the one being hunted. The following afternoon felt endless. I stayed in the surveillance van with Captain Sloan and Calvin, watching the live feed from the hidden cameras in my garage. Every heartbeat felt louder than the hum of the monitors. At 1:46 p.m., movement flashed on the screen. Victor was outside, speaking with Joseph near the pool, handing him some cash and a note. Joseph left moments later, riding off on his motorcycle just as Victor had planned. Then, from the back gate, a man in a baseball cap appeared. Leo Chen. He glanced around before slipping into the garage, crouching beneath my Cadillac. The camera zoomed in on his hands, pulling at the metal box under the chassis. "Hold position," Sloan whispered into her radio. We watched, breathless. Then she said one word: "Now." In an instant, unmarked police cars screeched to a halt outside my home. Officers flooded the driveway shouting police, hands where we can see them. Leo tried to run, but 2 officers tackled him. Victor froze near the gate, paralyzed by fear. Sloan leaned back, exhaling. The device is real, an officer reported moments later. It's been deactivated enough explosives to level half the house. I covered my mouth, tears spilling before I could stop them. If it weren't for Noah, I wouldn't have lived to see that moment. The next morning, I went to Warren Timberworks. It looked like a normal day, employees greeting one another, forklifts rumbling across the yard. But beneath that calm, Captain Sloan's team was already in position. Inside the conference room, Brooke stood at the head of the table, leading the weekly strategy meeting. She looked radiant in her navy blazer, her confidence untouched. Daniel sat quietly at the far end, scribbling notes, unaware of what was about to unfold. The door opened. Captain Sloan walked in, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent light. Brooke frowned. "Excuse me? We're in the middle of a meeting." Sloan held up a document. "Brooke Carter Warren, you are under arrest for attempted homicide and conspiracy to commit murder." The room fell silent. Daniel's pen dropped from his hand. Brooke's eyes widened before she laughed nervously. "You can't be serious, you have no proof." Sloan nodded to an officer who pressed play on a recorder. Brooke's voice echoed through the room. "Tell him to remove the device tomorrow. I'll find another way, something that looks like an accident." Brooke froze. The color drained from her face. Daniel turned toward me, confusion and heartbreak colliding in his eyes. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't find the strength to comfort my son. At the police headquarters, everything smelled of metal and tension. Daniel and I sat behind the one-way glass, watching Brooke in the interrogation room. She looked smaller now, her posture stiff, her face pale against the harsh light. Captain Sloan entered with calm authority and placed a thick red notebook on the table. Brooke's eyes darted toward it immediately. "This was found in your office safe," Sloan said. "Recognize it?" She flipped open the pages and began to read aloud. Phase 1, eliminate LW, Option A, car explosion, Option B, poisoning, Option C, accident. Brooke's lips parted, but no sound came out. I didn't. Sloan didn't respond. She simply pressed play on a recorder. Brooke's voice filled the room again, cold and deliberate. "Tell Leo to remove it. I'll come up with something else." Her shoulders slumped. "I just wanted control," she whispered. "She treated me like a child, like I didn't belong. I built that company too." Through the glass, I saw Daniel bury his face in his hands. I wanted to reach for him, but my body wouldn't move. Brooke lifted her tear-streaked face toward Sloan. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said quietly. But it was too late. Every lie, every mask she'd ever worn had already shattered. Months later, the courthouse was packed. Reporters filled the back rows, cameras flashing each time the door opened. The story had gripped the entire state, the daughter-in-law who tried to murder her mother-in-law for control of a family empire. I sat in the front row beside Daniel. He hadn't spoken much since the arrest, only doing what needed to be done. When Brooke entered, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, her confident posture was gone. She kept her head down, refusing to meet our eyes. The prosecution laid out the evidence. The photos of the bomb, the video of Victor's exchange, the red notebook, the recordings, all undeniable. Each piece of proof stripped away the image Brooke had carefully built for years. When it was her turn to speak, she stood, trembling. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "Jealousy blinded me. I just wanted to matter." Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes glistening. He didn't respond, just looked away. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Brooke Carter Warren, for attempted homicide and conspiracy to commit murder, this court sentences you to 25 years in prison." As they led her out, Brooke turned briefly toward Daniel. "Take care of Noah," she whispered. But my son didn't even look up. After the verdict, the house fell silent. No footsteps in the hallway, no laughter from Noah, only echoes of what once was. Daniel tried to stay strong, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. One morning he entered my office holding 2 papers, his resignation and a custody notice. "Mom," he said softly, "I need to leave. Noah and we can't stay here." I nodded, even though my heart broke. He needed space, far from the shadows of betrayal. They moved to a small house near Austin, a quiet place surrounded by fields and morning light. We spoke through video calls, Noah showing me his drawings, Daniel giving short updates about work. He smiled when he talked about gardening, about finding peace. But each night, when the calls ended, the loneliness returned. I poured my days into rebuilding Warren Timber Works, not just for business, but for survival. The company became my therapy, my reminder that strength could still grow from ruin. A year passed before I heard a knock at my office door. When I looked up, Daniel was standing there, tanned, calm, steady. Beside him, Noah ran toward me, shouting, "Grandma." I knelt and hugged him tightly. And for the first time in a long while, I felt life come back into my heart. Daniel didn't return to the boardroom. He asked to work in the workshop instead, among the scent of pine and the hum of carving tools. "I want to build something with my hands again," he said, and I understood. Each morning I watched him through the glass wall, sleeves rolled up, covered in sawdust. Noah sat nearby, carving tiny wooden planes, his laughter filling the space that once felt haunted. Little by little, the workshop became a place of healing. Months later, Daniel unveiled a new furniture line, clean, elegant, full of heart. He named it the Revival Collection. Every piece told a story of pain transformed into beauty. When it launched, critics praised its honesty, its soul. For the first time in years, I saw pride, not ambition, shining in my son's eyes. At the next board meeting, I stood before our team. "I've given my life to this company," I said, "but now it belongs to the next generation." I passed the leadership to Daniel, and as he took my hand, I saw Thomas's reflection in his calm, steady gaze. That evening, I sold the old mansion and moved into a small house with a garden and a golden retriever named Thomas Jr. Every sunrise since, peace no longer felt borrowed, it felt earned. One quiet afternoon, I sat on my porch, watching Noah and Daniel play in the garden. The sun dipped low, painting everything gold. Noah was laughing as he tried to climb the apple tree, and Daniel pretended to scold him, though he was smiling too. I closed my eyes, listening to their voices. For so long, I had lived in fear, in betrayal, in grief, but that sound reminded me why I fought so hard to survive. Not for revenge. For love. Life had taken nearly everything from me: trust, safety, even my faith in family. But it also gave me a second chance to rebuild what mattered most. The company could be replaced. The house, the money, all of it meant nothing. But the bond between mother and son, between grandmother and grandson, that was the one thing no one could destroy. I learned that betrayal doesn't end you, it refines you. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing peace over bitterness. As the evening breeze brushed past, I whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. Then, turning to the camera in my heart, I spoke to those who might be listening. If this story reached you, don't forget to like, share, and comment where you're watching from.